And for more on this, I'm joined by our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. So, Doug, there's a national security investigation underway. In the meantime, it's the Washington Post that gets this scoop on the leaker's identity. How did this happen?
It happened because a member of this Discord server group, a friend of the presumed leaker, approached the Washington Post and was ready to give them hours of interviews, detailed interviews, as we just saw in that report, talking about the members, what this, the presumed leaker, a man that everyone commonly called OG, shared this. All this group was said to share, be like-minded on issues of God and guns and military gear. They all had these common interests. They came together, but it is quite incredible when you think about it, what the Washington Post picked up here, because as the article itself points out, to date, no federal law enforcement official in the U.S. and remember, there's a posse of everyone in the intelligence and military community right now on a 24-hour manhunt for this guy. No one had approached the member of this group that spoke to the Washington Post. No one had approached him, so far to date. So presumably, they came to the Washington Post now, and this member was under 18. So actually, the paper said that they got permission from his mother in order to conduct these interviews, to video record them. And the member himself, the one speaking to the Post, said that he did not want his voice obscured. So he had absolutely no compunction, no qualms about speaking to the Post about this. What's interesting here is, the Post also got a cache of at least 300 classified photos that it was able to review, copies of texts that were apparently handwritten texts that were apparently written by this leaker known as OG, like I said, before he actually started taking pictures of a lot of these documents. He had handwritten them. Audio recordings of him presumably apparently talking to other members of this Discord server group. And recordings of him having discussions with them. So it was quite extensive, the cache of sort of sourcing and information that the Washington Post got before running with this story. That said, how did it leak itself? How did the leak leak? The leak came out of the server group around the end of February. I think it was around February 28th or so, when one of the teenagers in this group apparently posted some of those documents on another Discord server forum associated with another YouTuber, and then someone from that group posted them to a gaming app associated with Minecraft. So it all leaked and leaked and leaked and led to the big international revelations.
In the meantime, we're learning more and more revelations as these documents we are coming out and we understand them more. There's a separate report in the New York Times based on some of these leaks revealing there's broad infighting among Russian officials with regard to the war in Ukraine. Why is that significant?
It's significant, hardly shocking. We have been saying all along that the Russians, it's been quite a no-brainer that the Russians have clearly, at least in their official public disclosures about their casualties and their death toll, their losses on the battlefield in Ukraine, have been severely underestimating the scale of the toll. It was last September that we last got any sort of official figure from the Russians. It was Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu back then gave, a derisive figure. It was something like 5,937 Russians killed on the battlefield. 5,937 was official back in September. What the American previous estimates had been are up to 200,000 perhaps Russian losses. What these leaked documents are now suggesting is that the Russians have actually suffered anywhere from just over 189,000 to upwards of 223,000 casualties as of February, and that includes 43,000 troops killed in action. How does that compare to the Ukrainian estimates, also from these leaked documents? Anywhere from 124,000, a little more, to 131,000 Ukrainian casualties. So slightly less than the Russian estimates, but still very significant. And on the Ukrainian side, an estimated 17,500 killed in action. But what this New York Times report is basically saying is that there is a lot of feuding, a lot of finger-pointing, and a lot of strife within the Russian government at top levels, with intelligence officials pointing the finger at military officials, the defense ministry, chiding them, dressing them down, essentially, for not being upfront and more straightforward about the casualty figures. So there's dissension on that front within the government. And I will just note that the article also reports information from another leaked intelligence assessment that Vladimir Putin had convened a meeting between the defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, recently, and the chief of the mercenary group Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, convened a meeting between them basically to try to get them to iron things out. You remember Prigozhin had been basically railing against the defense ministry and the government for not giving him and his forces, his men, enough weapons at one point, and suddenly he seemed to have more weapons. Perhaps that was a result, perhaps, of this meeting forcibly convened by Vladimir Putin to get these men to work together rather than being at loggerheads all the time. So another very interesting revelation, which really goes to the heart of just how deeply American intelligence penetrated the top levels of Russian military and intelligence circles.
And I have a feeling we're going to continue to cover these revelations as they come out. Our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Doug, thanks as always.